I'm 79 years old, and I'm sitting in a house worth $3.2 million. I've got investment accounts with more money than I'll ever spend. I drive a car that costs more than most people make in 2 years, and every single night, I eat dinner alone at a table that seats 12, in complete silence, staring at 6 empty chairs. My name is Richard, but nobody calls me that anymore. Nobody calls me anything, because there's nobody left to call. You see, I spent 4 decades doing exactly what society told me to do. Work hard, climb the ladder, make more money each year, provide for your family, and I did all of that. I won at the game everyone said I should play. The prize, sitting alone in a mansion, wondering where everyone went. But before I tell you how I lost everything while thinking I was winning, I need you to understand something. I'm not unique. I see men my age everywhere making the same mistakes. And younger men too, heading down the exact same path. And if I could grab them by the shoulders, I'd say stop. You think you're building security. You're building a prison. Let me take you back to 1968. I was 23 years old, fresh out of college. I married my girlfriend Diane in a tiny ceremony. We had maybe 40 people there. We lived in a 600-square-foot apartment with a shower that barely worked and a heater that only heated half the rooms. But we were happy. Really. Genuinely happy. I remember lying in bed with her on Saturday mornings. No alarm, nowhere to be, just talking about our future. She'd rest her head on my chest and we'd make these small plans. Maybe a little house with a yard someday. Maybe 2 kids, maybe a dog. Simple dreams. But they were ours. In 1970, I got my first real job at an accounting firm. Starting salary was $12,000 a year. We thought we'd made it. Diane wanted to throw a party to celebrate. Nothing fancy, just friends, some cheap wine, maybe order pizza. I said we couldn't afford it yet. We needed to save first, build a foundation. Once we were really stable, then we'd celebrate. She looked disappointed, but she nodded. She understood. That's how it started. Not with one big decision to choose money over everything else, just a series of small no's, all of them reasonable, all of them pointing in the same direction. In 1972, Diane got pregnant with our daughter Amy. I was terrified. A baby meant more expenses, diapers, doctor visits, eventually college, more reasons to work harder. So I did. I started staying late at the office, taking on extra clients, coming home after Diane was already asleep, and I told myself I was doing it for them, for my family. Diane would call me around 6:30. When are you coming home? Dinner's getting cold. And I'd say, soon, honey, just finishing up this report. Just need to close this deal. Soon turned into hours. Hours turned into years. When Amy was born, I was in New York closing a deal with a client. I got the call that Diane was in labor at 2 p.m. I was in the middle of a presentation. My boss pulled me aside and said, "Richard, this client is worth $500,000. Can't she wait a few more hours?" And I stayed. I finished the meeting, caught a flight that evening, got to the hospital at 11 p.m. Amy was 6 hours old. Diane was holding her when I walked in. She didn't say anything. She just looked at me. Not angry, not crying, just resigned, like she'd expected this. Like she'd already started learning to do this alone. I held my daughter for the first time, and I promised right there that I'd be better, that I'd be present. That money was just a tool to give her a good life. But here's what I didn't understand. Every time I chose work over coming home, I wasn't just missing a moment. I was teaching them that they weren't the priority. That spreadsheets mattered more than bedtime stories, that clients mattered more than family. And they learned that lesson well. By the time Amy was 7, she stopped asking me to come to her school events. I found out why years later. She'd told her mother, "Daddy's always too busy. I don't want to keep making him feel bad." She was 7 years old, and she was already protecting me from the consequences of my own choices. I didn't know this at the time. I was too busy chasing the next promotion, the next client, the next number that would finally be enough. In 1980, I was making 6 figures. We moved into a bigger house, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2-car garage. I thought this was it. This was what success looked like. Diane wanted to throw a housewarming party. I said we should wait until we could really do it right. Impress people. She stopped asking after that. In 1985, I made partner at my firm, youngest partner in the company's history. I came home with a $200 bottle of champagne. I was so proud. Diane was in the kitchen. I told her the news. She said, "That's wonderful, Richard. I'm proud of you." But her voice was flat, empty. I asked what was wrong. She said, "Nothing. Congratulations." But we both knew. Making partner meant more hours, more travel, more nights I wouldn't be home. Amy was 13 by then. She came downstairs when she heard us talking. I told her the news. She said, "Cool, Dad," and went back upstairs. That was it. The biggest achievement of my career, and I got "Cool, Dad," and a closing door. I told myself it was normal. Teenagers are distant, right? It wasn't about me being gone all the time. That was the lie I told myself. In 1986, something happened that I didn't discover until it was far too late. Amy's school had a father-daughter dance. Diane mentioned it once, casually, asked if I could make it. I was traveling for work that week. I said probably not, but I'd try. I forgot completely. Years later, after everything fell apart, Amy told me about that night. She said she'd picked out a dress. She'd been so excited. And when I didn't show, her friend's dad danced with her. She said she spent the whole dance pretending she wasn't crying. She was 14 years old. I don't even remember what I was doing that night. Probably in a hotel somewhere, working on a deal I can't remember. But Amy remembers that dance. She'll remember it for the rest of her life. That's the thing about missed moments. The person who misses them forgets. The person who needed you there remembers forever. In 1990, my father died. Heart attack. He was 68. I flew home for the funeral and realized I hadn't seen him in 2 years. My own father. I lived 4 hours away. At the funeral, my mother pulled me aside. She said, "Your father was so proud of you. He'd tell everyone about your success." Then she paused. "But you know what he really wanted? He wanted to see you more. He kept saying, 'Richard's so busy, we can't bother him.' I promised her I'd visit more often. I'd bring Amy to see her. I saw her maybe 4 times in the next 5 years before she died too, and Amy barely knew her grandmother. By 1995, I was making $400,000 a year. We moved into this house, the one I'm sitting in right now, 6,000 square feet, worth $3.2 million today. I bought Diane a Mercedes, top of the line. She cried when I gave her the keys. I thought they were happy tears. She told me years later she was crying because she realized a car was my way of apologizing for never being there. She didn't want a Mercedes. She wanted a husband who came home for dinner. That same year, she asked if we could take a vacation, just the 2 of us, a week somewhere quiet. "Reconnect," she said. I said, "Soon, after this merger, after Q4, things will calm down." She didn't ask again. In 1997, Amy was working on a school project at the kitchen table. She had to interview a parent about their life. She asked Diane. Didn't even look at me. I was sitting right there, 10 feet away, and my own daughter chose to interview her mother because she knew I'd say I was too busy. That should have woken me up. It didn't. In 1998, Amy went to college. Stanford. Full ride. We drove her to campus together. 8 hours in the car. It was the most time we'd spent together in years. It was awkward. We ran out of things to talk about after the first hour. We spent the rest of the drive in silence. When we dropped her off, Amy hugged her mother for 5 full minutes. They were both crying, holding on to each other. Then Amy turned to me. She hugged me for maybe 5 seconds, stiff, polite, like hugging a distant relative at a funeral. She said, "Thanks for everything, Dad, for paying for all this." Thanks for paying, not thanks for being there, not "I'll miss you," just thanks for the money. Because that's all I ever gave her. That night, Diane and I drove back to our big empty house. I poured myself a drink. She went straight to bed. I sat in my office surrounded by awards and certificates, and I felt nothing. The next morning, Diane asked if we could go to marriage counseling. She said we'd been drifting apart for years. She felt like she'd been living with a roommate who paid the bills, not a husband. I said I was too busy. We'd figure it out. Things would calm down after this busy season. There's always a busy season. Things never calm down. You just keep promising yourself they will until everyone stops believing you. In 2003, Diane asked for a divorce, 28 years of marriage. She didn't yell, didn't cry. She just said very calmly that she'd been alone in our marriage for longer than she'd been in it, that she'd tried, that she'd waited, that she'd given me thousands of chances to choose her, and I chose work every single time. I was in shock. I asked what I could do to fix it, if she wanted me to cut back my hours, if she wanted to take that vacation. She looked at me with the saddest smile and said, "Richard, I wanted that 20 years ago. I wanted you to come home for dinner. I wanted you to notice when I was sad. I wanted you to choose us over work, just once, but you never did." I tried to explain. Everything I did was for her, for us. The house, the cars, the security. She shook her head. "No, it was for you. To prove something, maybe to yourself. But it was never about us. If it had been about us, you would have been with us." She moved out 3 months later, took half of everything, and honestly, I felt relieved. Relieved that I could work as late as I wanted without feeling guilty. That relief lasted about 6 months. Then the house started feeling too quiet, too empty. And I realized I'd built this entire life for a family that was no longer there. I threw myself into work even harder. By 2008, I was making over $1 million a year. I had everything I'd ever wanted in terms of career success, and I'd never been more miserable. Amy graduated college that year. Dean's List. I found out from a Facebook post. She hadn't told me. When I called to congratulate her, she seemed surprised I'd noticed. She got married in 2010. I wasn't involved in the wedding planning. Diane handled everything. I showed up, wrote a check for $50,000, and gave a toast I'd written on the plane that morning. It was generic, safe, the kind of toast a stranger might give. Because the truth is, I didn't really know what kind of woman she'd become. I knew her degree, her job, her husband's name. But I didn't know her, what made her laugh, what kept her up at night, her dreams, her fears. I didn't know my own daughter. A few months after the wedding, Amy called me. She said she was pregnant. I was going to be a grandfather. I told her congratulations, said I'd send money to help with baby expenses, set up a college fund. There was a long pause. Then she said, "I don't need your money, Dad. We're fine. I was hoping you'd want to be involved. Like, actually be there." I said, of course I would be. But I was in the middle of a big project. Things would calm down after that. I heard her sigh. She said, "Okay, Dad, sure." She didn't believe me. And she was right not to. My grandson Tyler was born in January 2011. I met him when he was 3 weeks old. I held him for maybe 10 minutes before I had to take a call. Some client issue that probably could have waited. Diane was there. Amy's husband's parents were there. They were all passing the baby around, taking pictures, laughing. And I was in the hallway on my phone talking about quarterly projections. When I came back, Tyler was asleep. I left 20 minutes later. Told Amy I'd visit again soon. I didn't come back for 4 months. In 2012, I retired. I was 67 years old. I'd saved millions. I had everything I'd worked for, and I had no idea what to do with myself. I tried to reconnect with Amy, started calling her every week. She was polite, but distant. I'd ask about Tyler. She'd give short answers. I'd offer to visit. She'd say she'd check her schedule. She rarely got back to me. I tried to reconnect with Diane too. Took her to dinner a few times. Tried to explain that I understood now, that I'd made mistakes, that maybe we could try again. She listened kindly. Then she said, "Richard, I spent 30 years waiting for you to understand this. I'm happy now. I have friends. I volunteer. I have a life that doesn't revolve around waiting for someone who's never going to show up. I hope you find that too." She remarried in 2015. A retired teacher named Paul. I saw pictures on Facebook. They travel together. They cook dinner together every night. They look happy. I'm happy for her. I genuinely am. But it hurts to see her living the life we could have had. Last year, Amy invited me to Tyler's 10th birthday party. I bought him an expensive gift, a top-of-the-line laptop, $2,000. I showed up for exactly 1 hour. I stood in the corner of the backyard watching Tyler play with his friends, with Paul, with Diane, with everyone except me. Paul was teaching Tyler how to throw a football. They were laughing. Tyler kept messing up and Paul would correct him, patient and kind, and they'd try again. I stood there watching a stranger teach my grandson something I should have been teaching him. Tyler calls him Grandpa Paul. He hugs him. He runs to him when he sees him. Tyler barely looked at me that day. I'm just some old guy who shows up once a year with expensive gifts. Paul was a teacher his whole life, made maybe $60,000 a year, lives in a modest house, drives a 10-year-old Toyota. But Tyler will remember him forever. Tyler will tell his own kids someday about Grandpa Paul who taught him to throw a football. Tyler won't remember me, and if he does, it won't be fondly. Before I left the party, Amy walked me to my car. I told her Tyler seemed happy. She said he was. She said Paul had been great for their family. Then she said something that broke me. She said, "You know, Dad, Tyler asked me the other day why you never visit, and I didn't know what to tell him. So I said, 'You're very busy.' That's what I learned to say when I was his age." She paused. Then she said, "I'm not angry anymore, Dad. I used to be, but I'm not. I have a good life. Tyler has a good life. But I want you to know something. Every missed recital, every birthday you called in for, every time you promised you'd come and didn't, I remember all of it." She got in her car, drove away. I sat there for 30 minutes, just sat there in my car, and I cried. Not the quiet kind of crying, the kind where you can't catch your breath. Because I'd done it again. I'd repeated the same pattern with my grandson that I'd done with my daughter. That night, I came home to this big empty house. I made dinner for one. I ate at this table that seats 12, alone, listening to my fork scraping the plate. And I thought about Paul, about how he'd probably never made more than $70,000 in a year, how he lived in a 1,500 square foot house. And I thought about how rich he was compared to me. Tyler loves him. Diane chose him. He'd built something I'd spent millions trying to buy and never could. Connection, presence, love. I calculated something recently that haunts me. In my career, I worked approximately 98,000 hours, 40 years, 50 weeks a year, 50 hours a week, probably more. You know how many hours I spent with Amy from birth to age 18? I really sat down and thought about it. Dinners, weekends, vacations, all of it. Maybe 2,000 hours. Maybe. I spent 98,000 hours building a career that doesn't remember my name, and 2,000 hours with a daughter who can barely stand to be in the same room with me. I'm 79 years old now. I live alone in this big house. My phone rings maybe twice a week. Amy calls on Sundays out of obligation. We talk for 7, maybe 8 minutes. She tells me about Tyler's grades. I ask about her work. We say we should get together soon. We both know we won't. Every Sunday night, out of habit, I set the table for 2. I put out 2 plates, 2 sets of silverware, 2 glasses. Then I remember, and I put one setting away. I don't know why I keep doing it. Maybe I'm hoping one Sunday someone will actually be there. Here's what I wish I could go back and tell my 30-year-old self. That $500,000 client? Not worth missing your daughter's birth. The promotion? Not worth missing 15 years of bedtime stories. The $1 million salary? Not worth losing your wife. Close your laptop at 5. Go home. Have dinner with your family. Take the vacation. Miss the meeting. Let the deal wait. Because the work will always be there. But your daughter's childhood won't wait. Your wife's patience won't wait. Your parents won't wait. Last month, I was at the grocery store. It was late, maybe 9 p.m. I go late because there are fewer people. There was a young father there with his daughter. She was maybe 6, sitting in the cart singing some song from a Disney movie, completely off-key, making up half the words. Her dad was singing along with her, just as off-key, just as wrong. They were laughing, having the best time. I watched them for a minute, and I remembered doing that once with Amy, once, in a grocery store in 1979. She was singing, "You Are My Sunshine," and I joined in, and she laughed so hard. I remember thinking, I need to do this more often. This is nice. I never did it again. Got too busy. Let those moments slip away like they'd always be there. They weren't. I had to walk away because I started crying. Just stood in the cereal aisle crying because I'd let something beautiful slip through my fingers and didn't realize it until it was gone. If you're watching this and you're working late tonight, if you're about to send that email saying you'll miss dinner, miss the game, miss the recital, if you're about to tell your family just one more year and then I'll slow down, please stop. Close your laptop, turn off your phone, go home, be there. Because you won't remember what that email said. You won't remember what the meeting was about. But your daughter will remember whether you were there. Your son will remember whether you showed up. Your wife will remember whether you chose her. I have $8.3 million, and I would give every penny for one day with Amy when she was 7, for one evening with Diane before I pushed her away, for the chance to be at that father-daughter dance. But money can't buy time back. Time only moves forward, and when it's gone, all the money in the world won't bring it back. Don't make my mistake. Don't spend 40 years building wealth while losing your family. Don't sacrifice presence for profit. Because this isn't success. This is failure that looks like winning until you realize you've lost everything that matters. If this story scares you, good. Let it scare you into action. Close your laptop. Go home. Be with the people who matter. Leave a comment and tell me what you're going to do differently. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And then close this video. Put down your phone and go be there. Because they won't wait forever. I thought they would. I was wrong.